The monastery where voices never die. The phone call lasted exactly 17 seconds. I know that because I listened to that recording more than 100 times afterward. 17 seconds. That was all it took for my brother to disappear. The recording begins with heavy wind. I can hear Arman breathing as he climbs the stony step leading toward the abandoned monastery high in the Himalayas. Then his voice, Nikhil, I found the tower. The wind howls. For a moment, everything sounds normal. Then another voice answers him, not through the phone, not from me, from somewhere beside him. A whisper, close, wet, ancient. I found you too. Arman screams. The recording ends. And nobody ever saw him again. At least that is what everyone believed. Until 6 months later, when he came back. The problem was, I don't think the thing that returned was my brother. The monastery stood nearly 12,000 feet above the sea level, hidden among black cliffs and forests of twisted pine. Local villagers called it Thangla Gopma. Nobody lived there anymore. Officially, the monks abandoned in 1928 after an avalanche destroyed part of the complex. Unofficially, the stories were different. The old villagers spoke about something beneath the monastery, something older than the monks, older than the mountain itself, a thing called the listener beneath the bells. As children, Arman and I laughed at the legend. According to local folklore, the monks built thousands of bronze bells around the monastery to imprison the spirit that fed on memory. The bells were never meant to ring, their silence was the prison. If anyone rang them after sunset, the listeners would awaken. It would learn your voice, then it would begin speaking with it. Eventually, nobody could tell which voice belonged to the victim and which belonged to the thing beneath the mountain. When Armand disappeared, while filming a documentary about forgotten religious sites, everyone assumed that he had fallen into a rival. Search teams found nothing, nobody, no equipments, no clues, only his phone. Still recording, still containing those 17 seconds. For 6 months, my family lived in grief. My mother stopped sleeping. My father stopped speaking. I buried my brother in my mind because there was nothing else I could do. Then one rainy evening, someone knocked on my apartment door. I opened it. Arman stood there, thin, pale, smiling, alive. I remember my knees nearly giving out. Arman, he hugged me immediately. His body felt ice cold, not cold from weather, cold like stones, cold like something that had never known sunlight. But he was alive. That was all that mattered. At first, the changes were subtle. He remembered people, events, places, yet details were wrong. He called out our mother by her maiden name. He forgot our dog's existence entirely. He insisted our childhood bedroom had only one window. It had always had two. Small mistakes, nothing alarming. Trauma does strange things to memory. That's what I kept telling myself. Then I started having dreams. The same dream every night. I was standing inside a monastery. Thousands of bells hung from the ceiling. None moved, none rang. Yet I could hear them. A low metallic vibration, like distant breathing, and beneath the floor, something enormous shifted, waiting, listening. I always woke at exactly 3:17 a.m. every night, without fail. 3 weeks after Arman's return, I discovered something impossible. We were looking through old family photographs when he paused at one picture. It showed the two of us standing beside a river. I was 12, he was 14. Arman frowned. Who's that beside you? I laughed. That's you? No. His smile faded. I have never been there. The room suddenly felt colder. You were standing next to me when the photo was taken. He stared at the image, genuinely confused, as if he truly did not recognize himself. That was when fear first entered my life. Real fear, not grief, not anxiety. Fear. I began investigating his disappearance. The police file revealed nothing useful. The monastery records were more interesting. According to archive journals, every monk abandoned Thangla Gopma after a single night. Not years, not months, one night. The surviving monks reported hearing their own voices speaking from underground, calling their name, reciting memories only they could know. Several monks vanished, others went insane. One journal entry contained a warning: if the listener learns your voice, don't answer it. If it speaks as someone you love, don't follow it. If it returns what was taken, don't welcome it home. I stopped breathing when I read the final line. Don't welcome it home. That night I confronted Arman. Tell me what happened in the monastery. His expression became distant. I don't remember. You must remember something. Silence. Then he looked directly into my eyes. And for one terrifying moment, his face seemed unfamiliar, like someone wearing my brother's skin. There was a door, he whispered. A door beneath the bells. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. What door? I opened it. His voice trembled, and something hurt me. The lights flickered. Every bulb in the apartment dimmed simultaneously, then returned. Arman suddenly clutched his hand. Blood began dripping from his nose, and he screamed, not in pain, in terror. It's listening. The window shattered. Every glass surface exploded inward. Then silence returned. Arman collapsed unconscious. The next morning he remembered none of it. Not a single word. That should have been enough. I should have left. Gone anywhere. Done everything except what happened next. Instead, I traveled to the monastery alone. The journey took 3 days. The higher I climbed, the stranger the world became. Road signs appeared twice, then vanished. My watch stopped repeatedly. I would walk for hours and discover only minutes had passed. Or the opposite. Reality felt loose, like a thread slowly unraveling. By the time I reached Thangla Gopma, snow covered everything. The monastery emerged from a blizzard like a corpse frozen in stone. Ancient silence watching. Thousands of bronze bells hung from wooden beams. None moved despite the wind. That terrified me more than if they had been drinking. Inside, dust coated every surface. Prayer flakes rotted in darkness. The air smelled of mold and old incense, and beneath everything else, a strange odor: wet earth, freshly dug graves. As night fell, I discovered the underground chamber. The door Armand described still existed, hidden beneath the bell tower, covered in symbols carved directly into black stone. Symbols unlike any language I recognized. The door stood slightly open, waiting. I don't know why I entered. Maybe curiosity, maybe a guilt, maybe something deeper. Something guided me. The tunnel beyond descended into darkness. My flashlight barely penetrated the blackness. Hours seemed to pass, or minutes. Time had become meaningless. Then I found the chamber, the bells, thousands upon thousands of them, hanging from an endless ceiling, silent, motionless. And beneath them stood pool of black water, perfectly still, a mirror. I approached cautiously. Then I looked into the water and saw my reflection. Except it was not mimicking me, it was smiling. I stumbled backward. The reflection remained. Its grin widened impossibly. Then it spoke. Using my voice, Nikhil, my blood turned to ice. The reflection stepped out of the water, not climbed, not emerged. It stepped like crossing a doorway. Its body resembled me, but distorted. Limbs too long, eyes too deep, skin stretched tight over impossible angles. Then the bells began ringing, all of them at once. The sound nearly shattered my mind. The creature smiled as suddenly memories flooded my head. Not mine, its memories. I saw centuries, travelers entering the monastery, hearing familiar voices, following loved ones into darkness, becoming food. Because the listener did not eat flesh, it ate identity, memories, lives, everything that made a person human. Then came the first twist. The listener showed me Arman's final moments. He had not been taken, he had sacrificed himself to save me. Because years earlier, during a childhood trip, I had accidentally rung one of the monastery bells. I had awakened the listener. It had been following me ever since Armand discovered the truth. He entered the monastery intentionally, trying to stop it, trying to take my place. I fell to my knees, horrified. The second twist arrived immediately. Armand never returned home, not once. The thing living with my family was not my brother, it was the listener, wearing pieces of him, learning humanity through imitations, practicing, growing stronger. The creatures before me laughed. Thousands of voices emerged from his mouth, men, women, children, centuries of victims. Then came the final twist. The listener was not trapped beneath the monastery. The monastery was trapped around the listener. The entire mountain existed as a prison. The bells were not seals, they were wearing warnings. The monks had never imprisoned the creature, they had merely hidden it from the rest of the world. And I had just rung every bell. The creature unfolded. Its human shape collapsed, stretching, expanding, growing into something impossible, a mass of faces, millions of faces, fused together in darkness, eyes opening everywhere, mouth whispering memories stolen across centuries. I saw Arman's face among them, still conscious, still trapped, still screaming, Nikhil! I ran toward him. The entity surged forward. Reality bent, walls melted, the chamber twisted like a living flesh. Voices echoed from every direction. My father's voice, my mother's voice, Arman's voice, all begging me to stop, all begging me to stay. I realized then what the listener truly wanted, not death, not destruction, witnesses, people, voices, stories, memories, and endless feast. I grabbed one of the ancient bells and struck it against the stone floor. The metal cracked. The sound that followed was not a ring, it was a scream. The entity recoiled. Another bell, another scream, then another, and another. The creature began tearing apart, faces dissolving, voices collapsing into static. The mountain shook violently. The prison was falling. Snow and stone crashed from above. The monastery began collapsing. Arman's face emerged briefly from the darkness. For one impossible moment, he looked alive again. Really alive. He smiled, the same smile I remembered from childhood. Then he whispered, Go. The mountain came down. I woke 3 days later in a rescue camp. They found me buried beneath snow miles from the monastery. The mountain itself had collapsed. Thangla Gompa no longer existed. Everything, everyone called it miracle. I wanted to believe them. For months afterwards, life seemed normal. The nightmares stopped, the voices vanished, my family finally began healing. Then last week I received a package with no return address. Inside was a memory card. Only one file existed, a video. A footage shows a dark underground chamber, thousands of bells, a black pool, and someone filming, someone breathing heavily, someone standing behind the camera. Then the camera tilted towards the water. The reflection looked up and smiled. Not my reflection, not Arman's, mine. The recording ended with a time stamp, tomorrow's date. I have checked it 100 times. The time stamps never changes, and every night since watching it, I wake at exactly 3:17 a.m. to the sound of the distant bells. Tonight the sound is louder, closer, and just a few minutes ago, while writing this, my phone rang. The caller ID displayed my own name. When I answered, a familiar voice whispered from the darkness on the other end, I found you too. The call is still connected, and I don't think it is calling from the mountain anymore.